This episode is brought to you by Paycor, the HR and payroll software made for leaders. It's never been harder to recruit, hire, and engage workers. That's why HR leaders and frontline managers depend on Paycor for all things people management, from onboarding and performance reviews to compensation and benefits. Learn more at paycor.com/leaders.
Empire.
Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Kahn Report. Wherever you get your podcast, you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Empire Media. That's AMPIRE. Always much appreciated when you tune in. And if you didn't have a chance to watch the live stream show on Tuesday night, go back and give it a listen. Bram Weinstein, the voice of the Commanders, and I had a pretty good discussion about what the Falcons game meant and just some other tidbits going forward about the team, etc. Also, I did a film review of the Falcons game, taking a look at why that Cinco, the 5 defensive line package, works so well against the Falcons. And I stressed in there, and I'll stress it again, is that you can't use that package every game because it's very specific to what the other team is going to do. They did use it 10 times in one of the games against the Giants last year, so perhaps they break it out again, at least to a degree this week. Certainly, the Falcons are a team that you're going to use it very much against because the kind of offense they have, more tight ends, more fullback, etc. So, anyways, go back and give that a listen or a watch, however you want to do it. And in a few minutes, I'll be joined by my ESPN counterpart in New York, Jordan Raanan, to talk about the New York Giants, because this is another. Listen, every game's a big game for a team that's going to be flirting, like in Washington, that they want to contend for the playoffs. So now every game is a big one, but you got to win this one. And, it's funny because I would have said the same thing about the Bears. You obviously had to win that one and they didn't, but this is another wounded team. You cannot let another opportunity pass, right? Or slip by, because this team can't afford that. They're just not good enough. So you can't lose in 3 weeks to the Giants and the Bears. You have to beat the Giants. Anyways, so stay tuned for Jordan. In a couple minutes, we'll give you some good intel. Is Daniel Jones' status? What's up with the offensive line? Saquon Barkley. That defense can still be very effective, especially against a young quarterback like Sam Howell, who tends to hold the ball a little bit too long. And those sacks are adding up. What you can't have happen is the turnovers, etc. But we'll get into more of that on Fridays or the Predictions and Keys podcast. Anyway, couple of injury notes for you from Wednesday. Cornerback Kendall Fuller did not practice because of a knee injury. Running back Chris Rodriguez missed practice for personal reasons. John Allen was limited knee. Cam Curl limited ankle. Christian Holmes limited hamstring. Chris Paul limited back. James Smith Williams limited foot. Montez Sweat limited finger. So there you go. That was the injury report from Wednesday. You can check my Twitter feed out for more on Thursday, whatever happens, and Friday as well. Anyway, and of course, you can read my work on ESPN.com. Another topic a couple of topics came up today. One, the sacks were a big deal. Just at least several questions about that because, listen, Sam Howell's been sacked 34 times. He's on a record-setting pace here, and it's got to change. And it's not just on the offensive line. We are learning about Sam Howell, and what we're learning is that he needs to develop in this area. And yes, the line can be better. He has to also improve, and that's going to be a big focal point for him and the team moving forward, because you need him to be present and available for the rest of the season. That's, and taking all those hits and all those sacks makes it very difficult. So he knows that. And that's something he talks about needing to get used to or to improve upon. And in fact, the first half of that Atlanta game, he did a really good job in that area. The trouble comes when they get into those third down and long situations, especially late in the game, where he's going to drop back, where they're just going to pin their ears and go after him. And every team is getting after him in that way. And so any team that comes in with some issues with sacks usually comes out with a lot more sacks than they came in with. But he was decisive in the first half, and that was a good sign for him. Anyway, something he needs to improve on, something he knows he needs to improve on, and that's something that the coaches have talked about as well. Also, Emmanuel Forbes, what's his status? Well, with Fuller out, Forbes, of course, was working at cornerback opposite Benjamin St-Juste with Danny Johnson in the slot. And we did talk to Forbes again after practice, and his answers are all, pretty good and whatever. But what I really like about Forbes, and it may not seem like a big deal to you, but I've been around enough players to know how they handle things. The kid does not bristle at questions. This is a tough time for him. And every single time someone's gone over to him, he has answered questions. It doesn't always happen like that. What does it mean for him on the field? I don't know, but I think he has the right attitude about the situation. He understands what he needs to do. Now, the question is, can he go out and do it, or when does he get out there and do it? And the one thing he did say is that by watching, he felt like the game, he was able to kind of watch what others were doing, how they approach certain situations, watching the quarterback, how they handle things, and just kind of getting a read and just, mentally going over things and jotting down mental notes about how players were handling certain assignments, et cetera. So can all that help? I don't know. If you learn, yes, it can, but he still needs to go out. He's still going to need to go back out there at some point and just see what he's learned. But I do like his maturity, and I do like that he's available to answer these questions, because it's not easy. I mean, I wouldn't want to have to answer questions every day about, hey, why did ESPN bench you? And I know he gets a lot of money, but I've been around enough athletes to know that not everybody handles it at his age this well. So that bodes well for him, and certainly as a person. But I also think it does as a player too, because one thing as a corner, you have to know, and he understands this very well, you have to have a certain mindset. And I think he remains confident, it seems, in what he can do. And that's a good place for him to start. So anyway, I just wanted to pass that along. And then also Jamison Crowder. By the way, before I get to that, and I forgot to give you the stats on sacks, and I'm going to go back to that for 1 minute. I'm going to be joined by by Jordan in 1 minute as well. So this is why the sack, obviously we all know that sacks are bad, real bad, right? But just to put it in perspective, give you some numbers, there have been 26 drives in which Sam Howell has been sacked. The Commanders have scored a touchdown on 2 of those drives, and they've gotten field goals on 4. So they've gotten, the point is, it's really difficult to have success for this offense when they have that many sacks. And, if you cut that in half, the success of this offense goes way up. Of those 26 drives, 13 have ended in punts, 3 missed field goals, 2 interceptions, turnover on downs, and a defensive TD. He's been sacked twice on 8 drives. The results have been 5 punts, turnover on downs, interception, field goal. So you can see the impact of that, and they know that, and they know that's a killer. Like for them, sacks and penalties are big time killers right now, but especially those sacks. Well, actually, both of them. I mean, a 15-yard or 10-yard holding penalty is pretty bad too, but it's just been hard for them. I think it's obvious that it's hard to get out of a sack, or out of a hole caused by sack. But I just wanted to illustrate just how tough it is for these guys to have success after that. And then finally, Jamison Crowder was named the NFC Special Teams Player of the Week after his punt return. And one of the things that Ron Rivera, he referred to Crowder's sage wisdom, and I would agree with that. Crowder's a good dude. And one of the things that Rivera was talking about was how he likes watching Crowder work with Kaz Allen, work with him in the slot, work with him as a returner, and that kind of stuff. You can prove invaluable to a team when you're able to share what you know and help develop a young kid. And maybe Kaz Allen becomes a guy down the road because he's got a similar quickness, very raw as a receiver, very, very raw. Crowder was obviously further ahead coming out of college, but he's a good guy to learn from. Slot returner, he can help in both areas. So anyway, just wanted to pass that along, and now you know. So anyway, here we go. Here's my conversation with my counterpart from who covers the New York Giants, Jordan Raanan.
This episode is brought to you by Paycor. Paycor empowers leaders to build winning teams. With Paycor, leaders can recruit, Onboard and train employees, set goals, and drive performance. If you're a leader, everyone depends on you. Who do leaders depend on? Paycor. Learn more at paycor.com/leaders.
This fall, stream your favorites and discover more with Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus together. Watch the highly anticipated new season of Loki and see the ghosts materialize in Haunted Mansion on Disney Plus. Catch more frights with The Boogeyman and American Horror Story Delicate on Hulu. And on ESPN Plus, get into the action with college football and NFL. All of these and more streaming now. Get the Disney Bundle with plans starting at $9.99 a month. Plans with ESPN Plus starting at $14.99 a month. Terms apply. See DisneyBundle.com for details.
All right, Jordan, it's the annual Giants are struggling, and here comes Washington week. So
home and home.
We
do our home and home. We do our home and home interviews.
That's right.
For the
That's
podcast.
right. Yeah, and people can't get enough of these two teams playing each other.
Of course.
And they can't get enough of the Giants on primetime. But
wait, imagine this was on primetime? That would be the ultimate, like, shove in the nation's face.
I think the nation has suffered enough. Anyway, but, this is not going the way New York expected. And clearly injuries have played a big role in this. And also, I guess Brian Daboll did not invent coaching. So I guess we're kind of at that point too. But man, the injuries, like what's going on? Let's start with Daniel Jones. We're talking Tuesday and this will air Thursday. So you're going to find out more throughout the week and, follow Jordan on Twitter to get the latest information on that. But as we stand now, what's going on with Daniel Jones and that neck injury?
Yeah, he said on the NBC broadcast, like there was some discomfort on the left side and it kind of went into his left shoulder a little bit. So until he gets cleared to get on the field and for contact, I don't expect to see Daniel Jones. Now, let's see if he gets on the field at all this week. He didn't last week. But then there's still the question when he does get on the field, John, quarterbacks don't take contact in practice.
Right.
So there's a difference between a quarterback practicing and throwing, and it's a difference between being able to absorb and take hits and be involved in contact. That was the thing 2 years ago when Daniel Jones had a neck injury. He was out there practicing 100%. He was going through these full workouts, but he wasn't cleared for contact. So he's got a long way to go as we stand here on Tuesday. It would seem right now that it might be a long shot for him to make this game. So that would be another, round of Tyrod Taylor, who's, started and won games in this league. So it's not like it's a massive drop off. That's why they signed and paid him last year in the first place. Well,
and as we know, and because you never know what happens with this league and injuries and who plays when, but Daniel Jones, I was looking it up. He's 5-1-1 against Washington. There's only one other team that he's played more than once that he has a winning record against, and that's Carolina. He's 2-0.
Hometown team, by the way. That's his hometown team.
Okay,
Carolina.
That's right. He also, by the way, he and Sam Howell have the same offseason quarterback coach, Anthony Boone in Carolina. 10 touchdown passes against Washington, no more than 5 against anybody else. 52 carries for 324 rushing yards against Washington. It's 46-214 versus Dallas and 29-238 against Philly. In other words, he looks really good against these guys. So before we move on and get to Tyrod Taylor, just in case Jones comes back, what is it do you think about him and this team that leads him to consistently have success?
Yeah, it's kind of curious because if there is one strength of Washington, it has been the defensive line, and the teams that have really good defensive lines have sort of torn apart the Giants over the years, right? That's why, the whole division has really been good on the defensive line. That's why Dallas and the Eagles have just dominated them completely, and Daniel Jones had way less success. I think a lot of it has to do with discipline.
Yeah.
And it seems like when they play Washington, every time he pulls the ball, it's like, oh, look, the Red Sea has parted for Daniel Jones. And then
I'm shocked he'd run.
Yeah, like I can't believe they did that. But when he has that, he becomes a much better quarterback. So I think that plays a part in it. Some of it's probably a little bit of luck. Some of it's probably been the state of where Washington's been when they played them a few times. I know they played late in the season They've been in shambles, each or both of these teams. So it's a total crapshoot. Maybe he just feels comfortable playing in that stadium. I don't think there's a definitive explanation. You tell me, because usually I say, historical stats don't matter, but it kind of does matter when you're playing the same players in the same unit, right? It doesn't matter what they did 20 years ago against like that. The Jets this past week had never won against the Eagles, has literally zero bearing on the current players had they lost in 1989.
Right.
But Washington does have a lot of the same players. They are running the same system for how many years in a row defensively
Since 2020.
now? Since 2020. So I think there is correlation on this one.
I think you hit it on discipline is a big thing with, being able to contain him. And then the other part has been their offense. I mean, it's not like last year, the Giants scored 20, I think it was 20 points both games. They lost, it was a tie and a loss. So it's not like it's always just Jones tearing them up, but he does play well against them. And usually there's like one or two plays with his legs where it's like, okay, that was a big play in the game. It's like, I can't believe Daniel Jones pulled the ball and ran. Well, guess what? He does it every time. So I think the discipline is a big part. And then the lack of offense is why the record is like his offensive success is one thing. The record, I think, is also attributable to the lack of a good, last year, lack of an offense. Tyrod Taylor, what does he give them? Because he can also run a little bit too. So what does he give the Giants?
I don't think you get as much running, especially the designed runs. What you get from Tyrod Taylor is almost like a recklessness, right? Which sometimes shows in a negative way. And that's probably why he's never been a full-time starting quarterback. A, it puts his body in harm's way. And B, turnovers could come as a result. He's aggressive, though. So you're going to see more shots downfield. He's going to throw the ball downfield. He's going to try and make plays. He's going to run around in the pocket, spin, and who knows what happens at that point. So if I'm Washington, I'm saying we want to get him off the spot, try to make some crazy plays. Then what you need to protect against with him is he's going to fire the ball downfield. And you saw that a little bit more in Buffalo than we've seen with Daniel Jones at quarterback. Their offensive line is still in pretty rough shape.
Right.
So he's not going to be able to sit back there. He's going to be under consistent pressure. He was again the other day. Even though it was kind of hidden by the fact that, they didn't turn the ball. But again, John, this offense has gone almost 3.5 games without scoring a touchdown.
Yeah.
In the NFL, 3.5 games. So it's not like you should be scared of this offense. You should be saying, can we shut this offense out?
Well, that's the thing. And that's why I say the nation is grateful. There's only one more primetime game because of that.
One too many, the nation thinks.
Yes, you'll be back at you'll be back at 1:00 next year for a lot of games. But it is, like the ability to throw it down the field, that's where this team has been hurt. If you can make some scramble plays and do that, it would seem like they need a spark. But let's go back to the offensive line, because Andrew Thomas, another question. Their question out there. What's the health of that? What's the state of that offensive line with the health?
Yeah, we're early in the week, so not positive. But Andrew Thomas and John Michael Schmitz, the rookie starting center, weren't on the field at all last week. I'd be surprised if they make it back for this game. So the Giants' offensive line is still a mess. Justin Pugh played at left tackle last week. There's a good chance he's their starting left tackle this week. He's straight off the couch as he introduced himself on Sunday Night Football. I mean, he hadn't played left tackle since 2015, really. He had a couple snaps here or there, but since 2015. So you're talking a guy who hadn't played left tackle in 8 years. Left guard, you have Mark Lewinsky, who's a veteran, who's serviceable at times. Ben Bredesen at center, who is really their starting left guard, much better left guard than he is center. Marcus McKeithen, whoever they want to put a right guard. Marcus McKeithen, he graded out 60th, I believe, of 60 guards this past week.
So he's top
right?
60.
Where's my sheet?
So he's top 60.
He's near the bottom of the guards. Let me say that. I'm sorry, 57 out of 57 in pass block win rate last past week. So not quite 60th, but only because there wasn't 60 guards that qualified. And he's probably the worst of them all at this point. A guy who was a late round pick last year, kind of thrown into the mix. He missed all of his rookie year. And then at right tackle is Evan Neal, who's the 7th overall pick last year, but has been struggling greatly. He had a 79.2 pass block win rate this past week, and that was 41st out of 56 tackles, right? Again, not good. And fans are kind of talking about how, hey, that was a pretty good game for Evan Neal. That was one of his better games. But that's where the bar is for this line. It is a line where you don't have probably one above average player at this point. So if you're Washington, you say, we only need to rush with 4, and we need to dominate. And if we don't, we deserve to lose the game.
Yeah, and it's funny. Like I said, though, there are a lot of times Washington goes in this game like, well, the Giants are in bad shape, and somehow the Monday morning headline is, have the Giants turned their season around? But it just seems like it'd be really hard for this offense to get it going. Even like Washington's defense has enough talent up front they should dominate this front, and that should be enough. But all it takes is one big play, and so you have a couple of young receivers, Jalen Hyatt, was it Wan'Dale Robinson? How are they working them in? And, what's going on with those two? Can they provide a spark for them?
Yeah, we saw this past week that the Giants have pared down their wide receiver rotation, and the young guys are going to play. And Brian Dable said it on Monday. They're young. We need to get them in the game. They need to get experience. So they're talking about Wan'Dale Robinson and Jalen Hyatt. You saw Jalen Hyatt make a big play late. He made a big play downfield in that game that was called back by a very questionable illegal man downfield penalty. So you're going to see a lot of those young receivers for the Giants. Sterling Shepard's kind of been out of the rotation. Paris Campbell's now out of the rotation, close to it at least. They'll be sprinkled in a little bit. So you're looking at Wan'Dale Robinson, Jalen Hyatt, and Darius Slayton. And those are the guys who the Giants are going to look to make plays, and with a little Isaiah Hodgins sprinkled in. But you're going to see the Giants are going to, trust me, they know what they have at the offensive line, John. They're going to do their very best to protect them. And their number one receiver, don't mind you, is none of those guys. It's Darren Waller.
Right.
So that's the guy I think the Giants are going to look to make plays the most. And Saquon Barkley's also back. Certainly helps.
And I was going to ask you how Barkley looked, because again, it's behind, you can see the numbers. Like I wasn't able to watch all that game the other night. I haven't really kind of watched a lot of the Giants just yet. I usually watch them later in the week. So I know what the numbers are. He had a couple big runs that gave him some good numbers, but how much of that, like, how does he look? And then how much of it, his success, lack of success before some of those big runs, a function of that offensive line?
Yeah, at one point he was at 12. I remember looking 12 rushes for 12 yards. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot of negatives and a lot of nothings. Not necessarily on him. Like I said, this offensive line is in rough shape. So not a lot of room to run. Now, when he did have room to run, was able to break some big plays. He still has that speed, right? Maybe not the speed when he was a rookie and breaking those 50-yard runs like they were nothing against Washington and everybody else. But look to me a little bit when he had to cut right. You could still see that ankle. He had a high ankle sprain and he missed 3 weeks. Right. Still see it affecting him a little bit once he slipped, once he just didn't look great going right. You could tell it just wasn't what I usually see when I see Saquon Barkley. Because there's one thing he could do is that jump cut is what he does, right? And most running backs, they do it, and it's impressive. He looked not quite to be there yet in that regard, but good enough to be a quality player, provide a threat. Just him being there provides a threat and opens things up for other guys. And now 1 week healthier, I expect to see an even better version of Saquon Barkley. So he's definitely someone Washington should be concerned about and pay a lot of attention to.
And he obviously a threat in the pass game as well, or are they going to have to keep him in a lot more to pass protect?
Yeah, no, he just hasn't proven to be. He is a threat in the pass game. Just he's not like, let's spread him out wide and use him as a wide receiver type of running back. Everybody always talks about that, like that he has that skill set. This is the year, and we're in year what? This is 6, and that's never happened. So, but he can catch balls out of the backfield and then make some yards, and he's a favorite target of the quarterbacks, at least when Daniel Jones is in for sure. Those little short passes in the flat, 5-6 yards, decent gains, move on to the next play.
So let's look at the defense too for real quick. We'll close out on the D. I'm surprised how the run defense has been really bad. And why is that?
It's a good question. I think, and this was really one of the biggest problems with this team from the start. Their depth was very questionable. And so it's proven to be a problem. Now, this defense has gotten better in recent weeks, right? They played really well. They let up less than 300 yards against Seattle, which is a good offense. They created 3 turnovers, end up giving up over 500 yards against Miami, but created 3 turnovers and scored a touchdown. And then they played really well against the Buffalo Bills this past week. So Seattle, Miami, and Buffalo, you're seeing them play much better. I think this defense is in much better shape than it was earlier in the year. Bobby Okereke, an inside linebacker, is playing great.
That's the one name I keep hearing on that D. Like when I see tweets or whatever, it's like it's always his name.
Yeah, he played unbelievable the other night in Buffalo. Really has been the last few weeks really taking his game to a new level. That inside linebacker piece in this defense is made to go make plays. They use him in a lot of different ways, and he's excellent in pass coverage. So, and then Kayvon Thibodeau is a guy he's been up and down, but it's partly because people have high expectations from him. They want him to be a star. They want him to be what Aiden Hutchinson is being in Detroit. He's still a good player. He's still their top pass rusher. So he has 4 sacks already, decent number. There's been too many times where he's probably been invisible, but he's a quality player, a guy you have to keep an eye on. The secondary has been a little shaky, especially Adoree Jackson has not had his best year. He's supposed to be their top cornerback. So it'll be interesting to see if he is the one that's even on Terry McLaurin often. He is also in and out of the lineup this past week. Rookie Deonte Banks from Maryland, the guy, he's been actually very good. I wonder if we see him a bunch on Terry McLaurin.
And with Thibodeau too, because pretty much every team that's come in here with low sack numbers has exited with double their sack total. And sometimes it's the O-line, and something like Thibodeau against Andrew Wiley would concern me. But you also have a quarterback who holds the ball. So are they getting, I watched them the other day and they were getting close to pressures, close to things. Are they, do you think it's, and I was surprised with the interior that they're not getting a little bit more too. Are you surprised at the production there?
Yeah, their pressure rate is actually not very good, but their pass rush win rate, I'm looking it up right now, is actually pretty high. So it's actually 48.4%, which is 11th. So that's pretty good. So it's been up and down, I would say. They're not getting an inordinate amount of pressure, especially for a Wink Martindale defense. But I expect him at this point to dial it up, right? This is the game where I think you're going to see a lot of different pressures. This is what he does, Wink Martindale, with a young quarterback who hasn't seen that much like Sam Howell. I think you're going to see Wink Martindale. Like last week, again, it was different. Josh Allen,
sure.
You have to their goal was to keep him in the pocket and not let him blitz and let him hit big plays. And so this week I think is going to be very different. He blitzed at a like 20% clip last week, which is like half of what he normally does. I expect that to get back up over 40% in this game and to show Sam Howell things that he's probably never seen. And what I mean by that is, and this is the Wink Martindale defense in general, there might be 4 or 5 guys coming, but you don't know which 4 or 5. Right. It doesn't necessarily have to be the 4 that are lined up at the line of scrimmage. It might be one of the inside backers. It might be one of the safeties. It might be the nickel. Like you're going to see guys coming from different places, even if it's only 4 rushers. That's, I think, the way even we've seen Wink Martindale do it against young quarterbacks over the years. And
he's seen a lot of those overloads, and they've had some struggles against that at times for sure. But Wink Martindale is always a little bit of a mad scientist with some of those pressures.
Yeah, that's what he does. He actually explains how when he goes about designing his game plan, he looks at how the other team protects, and he builds his game plan essentially out from the offensive line protections. And that's different from how pretty much every other defensive coordinator does it. So, that's basically how he builds his defense that week. So it's going to be built on the Washington offensive line, how Sam Howell handles that, and where they think they could attack best against this offensive line, which is where.
Jordan, I appreciate the insight, and we'll see you Sunday for another version of this game. Thank you.
Jewelry isn't a gift you give just once. It's a way to remind your loved one of a beautiful moment every time they see it. Blue Nile can help you find the gift that says how you feel and says it beautifully, with expert guidance and a wide assortment of jewelry of the highest quality at the best price. Go to BlueNile.com and experience the convenience of shopping Blue Nile, the original online jeweler since 1999. That's BlueNile.com to find the perfect jewelry gift for any occasion. BlueNile.com.
Apple Card is the credit card created by Apple. You earn 3% daily cash back up front when you use it to buy a new iPhone 15, AirPods, or any products at Apple. And you can automatically grow your daily cash at 4.15% annual percentage yield when you open a high-yield savings account. Apply for Apple Card in the Wallet app on iPhone. Apple Card subject to credit approval. Savings is available to Apple Card owners subject to eligibility. Savings accounts by Goldman Sachs Bank USA, member FDIC. Terms apply.
That's it for this episode. Thanks to Jordan for joining me, and thank you, as always, for tuning in. I'll be back on Friday/Saturday morning with my keys and a prediction for the Commanders game at the New York Giants. I'll talk to you next time.